We'll now move to question time, and I shall call Senator Chandler.
Thank you, President.
I would like question time to start in silence. Thank you, Senator Watt. Senator Cash. Let's just pretend we're starting on silence. Senator Chandler.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. In the December quarter, public sector demand grew more than twice as fast as private sector demand. This is the second quarter in which the public sector has outgrown the private sector. That means that over the last 6 months, the period that the RBA has blamed for hiking interest rates, public sector demand grew faster than private sector demand. Minister, at a time when households and businesses are tightening their belts, why is your government pouring debt petrol on the inflation fire, forcing the Reserve Bank to consider keeping interest rates higher for longer?
Thank you, Senator Chandler. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Chandler for the question. I congratulate her on her appointment into the shadow finance portfolio, and I congratulate the opposition for getting around to asking a question about the economy on day 3 of this sitting week. Now, the opposition have never seen a set of economic data that they don't want to come in here and bag and talk down the Australian economy. That is their setting. That is their standard setting, as opposed.
Minister Gallagher, Senator Wong.
I could perhaps just dial down the volume.
Is that a point of order?
Sorry, I apologise. That was a point of order. I wonder if Senator Cash could do us the courtesy of dialling down the volume.
The Minister is entitled to be heard in silence. Minister Gallagher, did you wish to continue?
I did want to continue. Yes, thank you very much. And in this data today, we have seen the strongest economic growth across the economy, broad-based growth, as explained by the ABS, for the strongest growth in 3 years. And I am surprised by Senator Chandler, who seems to be adopting the shadow treasurer's hysterical language that he seems to want to use all the time. I am surprised that those opposite want to come in here and argue against defence spending, because that is essentially at the heart of the question that Senator Chandler has asked today. That those opposite, who supposedly want to spend more on defence, would come in here and criticise the public investment that we are making, not only in defence infrastructure, but also in consumption through the recruitment of additional staff to the defence portfolio. And it is clear, if you had read the national accounts, that defence and the state and territory governments' spending, primarily on health infrastructure, contributes to public demand in this national account. So I am surprised, because I thought the opposition supported investment in defence.
Answering has expired. Senator Chandler, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Under Labor, public sector demand is at its highest level in Australian history. When public sector demand surges ahead of private demand, it crowds out businesses, drives up costs, fuels inflation and makes the RBA's job just that much harder. Minister, when will you accept that it is your government's spending that is contributing to inflationary pressure and pushing up prices for Australians?
Thank you, Senator Chandler. Minister Gallagher.
Well, we don't accept that, and that's not that's something that a political point that you're trying to make. But this government doesn't apologise for investing in Medicare. We don't apologise for investing in defence. We don't apologise for investing in veterans and pensions. All of the things that Senator Chandler's party criticised and were going to cut if they were in government. This government, well, you can't criticise the spending and then say you're not going to cut. You cannot criticise the spending and then not accept that that means you are going to cut. Senator Henderson.
Order.
That is the argument that you are putting.
Please resume your seat. Honestly, Senators Mackenzie, Henderson and Nampijinka-Price, you are drowning out the minister. It is not appropriate. You are being disrespectful to me and the Senate. Minister, please continue.
Thank you. Now, if you look in the national accounts, you can see that the big story across the economy in 2025 is the recovery of the private sector, which is a very good thing, and the pace of annual growth in private demand continued to pick up in 2025. The national accounts—
Minister, the time for answering has expired. I'm just waiting until there's silence. Senator Chandler, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, why are you happy for Australians to pay the price for Labor's reckless spending through higher prices, higher borrowing costs and weaker living standards?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, that's a political point that you choose to make. We do not accept that, and the national accounts do not reflect that. So let's be clear about that. The government has managed the budget responsibly, made sensible investments where they are needed across the economy, and in stark contrast to the way you managed the budget when you were in government, which is you didn't fund things in an ongoing sense to try and make it look better, knowing that those costs were coming. So you couldn't believe the set of numbers that you released, and we saw that. We're fixing the budget, we're making sensible investments, we're finding savings when you found none. We're paying down debt, we're paying less interest on that debt because debt is $176 billion lower than it was under your forecast. And we're doing all of that. At the same time, we are seeing the strongest economic growth in 3 years.
Thank you, Minister. Before I come to you, Senator De Liege, I'll draw to the attention in the public gallery of former Western Australian Senator Chris Back. Senator De Liege.
Thanks very much, President. And my question is to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator Wong. Conflict in the Middle East over the last few days has continued to destabilise an already unstable and unpredictable region. Iran has now attacked 10 countries in the region, with missile and drone attacks continuing daily. Minister, can you provide an update on the Albanese Labor government's assessment of the current state of conflict in the Middle East?
Thank you, Senator De Liege. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator De Liege, and thank you President. Conflict in the Middle East over the last few days has continued to destabilise the region. However, we have had some positive news with confirmation of a plane with more than 200 Australians is on its way from Dubai. However, with 10 countries under attack by Iran, the situation in the Middle East could get even worse, and the conflict is still spreading. Bahrain, Cyprus, Iraq, Israel, Jordan, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia and the UAE have all been struck by Iran. The US consulate in Dubai, not far from the Australian consulate, has also been attacked, and I can confirm that our personnel across the region are safe and accounted for. I'm also pleased to advise the Senate that Emirates flight EK414 has taken off from Dubai and is en route to Sydney with more than 200 Australians on board. But the government is very clear. We know that there are many more thousands of Australians who are in the Middle East and are waiting for flights to come home. This will be a challenging time for many Australians. Travel disruptions could go on for some time. Commercial flights continue to be the fastest way to help Australians leave the Middle East at scale. Of course, the government has been working on contingency planning, and that continues, and DFAT has continued to surge consular capacity to where it is needed. And I announced before question time today that we are deploying 6 crisis response teams to the region over the next 24 hours. These teams will support on-the-ground consular efforts, as our #1 priority remains the safety and security of all Australians in the region.
Just a reminder for all of us, make sure mobile phones are turned off or on silent. That is not the only device I've heard this week, so there are other culprits in here. Had you finished your response, Minister Wong? So, Senator De Liege, first supplementary.
Thank you very much, Minister. And as you mentioned, airspace closures and disruptions to travel have been occurring because of the conflict in the Middle East. Like many travellers around the world, Australians have been experiencing flight delays and cancellations. How is the situation evolving for Australians in the region?
Thank you, Senator. Minister Wong.
Our first priority is keeping Australians safe, and we are working around the clock to help Australians who need it. I'm in touch with our partners in the region to engage on efforts to support Australians impacted by travel disruptions. Prime Minister Albanese spoke to the UAE President yesterday, and I also spoke to the UAE Foreign Minister, who confirmed that the United Arab Emirates is working hard to facilitate flights, the first of which we have seen take off this morning headed for Sydney. However, we have seen many flights cancelled and diverted as the situation on the ground and in the air changes. I want to say to Australians, we are engaging closely with airlines and the travel industry through what we know is a challenging period for many Australians, and I continue to urge all Australians who are affected to ensure that they keep apprised of the information and travel advice.
Thank you, Minister. Senator De Liga, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. And although there have been some positive developments in recent hours, it's said that disruptions could go on for some time. What other actions is the Albanese Labor government taking to support Australians in the region in response to this crisis?
Thank you, Senator De Liga. Minister Wong.
This conflict is unlikely to come to immediate resolution, and obviously that has implications for the people of the region, and it has implications for the global economy and therefore for Australians at home as well. Around 20 million barrels of oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz every day, the equivalent of about 20% of global oil supply. The crisis will obviously have implications for the global economy, including for commercial shipping and energy. I want to make it clear the government is doing all we can to support Australians at this time. Our nation is fuel secure, and we have more fuel now than at any time over the last 15 years. I can also indicate the Treasurer has indicated publicly he has written to the ACCC to ask for their assistance. The government has made clear this crisis should not be an excuse for retailers to gouge customers or to increase prices opportunistically above and beyond the impacts of events in the Middle East.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hume.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. Minister, real wages are 2.1% today lower than the day that Labor took office. And according to the RBA's own forecast, they will continue to fall throughout this year. Under this government, Australians are not treading water, they're going backwards, and many families and businesses are going under. Minister, after 3 years in office, will you finally admit that real wages are lower under your government?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and congratulations, Senator Hume, on your new role as Deputy Leader of the Opposition. I am surprised that the first question you would ask us is around wages, considering your government's considering about your record on wages and the fact that you wanted to sack 41,000 workers, the fact that you've criticised a lot of the investments we've made into aged care and early childhood education and care into the wages of those individuals, or the submissions that we make to the annual wage review each year to get wages moving again. And when your record was that annual real wages fell for 5 consecutive quarters before we came to office, real wages were going backwards 3.5% at the election in May 2022, and we have turned that around. And we have had strong and consecutive quarters of real wages growth. This government supports people earning more and keeping more of what they earn, which is why, Senator Hume, we took tax cuts to the election too, which you opposed, because we wanted workers to keep more of their earnings and pay less tax on it. And what was the position of the opposition on that? No, we are going to the election promising a tax increase for every working Australian. 14 million Australians. Not only were women bludgers and had to go back into the office and not allowed to work from home, that wasn't enough. Then we would actually increase taxes on every worker at the same time that we are criticising the investments we have made into working people's lives.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Hume, first supplementary.
Since Labor came to power, Portugal, Poland, Hungary, Chile, Spain, the United States, Denmark, Ireland, Italy, France, the Netherlands, United Kingdom, Canada, Czech Republic, Belgium, Austria, Finland, Germany and Sweden have all managed to grow
living standards. So have the G7, so is the OECD. Now, Australia stands alone as the only developed economy in the world where living standards have gone backwards. Minister, what is Labor's explanation for that?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. And the senator asked me about living standards, and I'll just remind Senator Hume that the last quarter they were in power, living standards fell by 1.5% in that quarter. That is what we inherited when we came to government, and every decision we have made since then has been to address that and to turn that around. Annual nominal wages have grown above 3% for 14 quarters in a row, the longest streak in more than a decade and a half. And this comes after 8 consecutive quarters of annual real wage growth, the longest period of consecutive growth in more than a decade. Living standards, including real incomes per capita, grew 2.1% through the year to the September quarter, and they are growing faster than every G7 economy. So I accept that it is our responsibility to keep focused on all of the issues facing
the time for answering has expired. Senator Hume, second supplementary.
Australians are poorer under Labor and they deserve a straight answer from you, Minister. By how much have living standards fallen under your government?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Hume for the question. As I just said in my earlier answer, which you might not have been listening to, living standards grew 2.1% through the year to the September quarter. We can add in the December data on top of that as well. And I would say that this government's focus has been on dealing with inflation, looking at how we drive productivity, and now managing some of the global uncertainty we see across the world, and in particular since the weekend with the events in Iran and in the Middle East. They will be the focus. That will be the focus of the government's thinking. How do we help people with cost of living pressures? How do we manage the budget responsibly? How do we make the key investments we need to make, whether it be in defence or on the social services side of the budget, in a world where the global economy is more uncertain? They are the challenges facing the government, and we will deal with them responsibly.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters.
Thanks, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. It is ordinary people who suffer from war, whether it's civilians being killed throughout the Middle East or Australians feeling more economic pain, whilst big corporations make money off that suffering. In 2022, in the wake of Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine and the global gas crisis that followed, Woodside's profits doubled and Santos pocketed $3.5 billion. Already we've seen Woodside and Santos's share price rise more than 7% in just 4 days since the illegal strikes on Iran. And investors expect more windfall profits for gas companies. Your government was the first to support this illegal war. What will your government do to stop big corporations profiteering off Trump and Netanyahu's illegal war?
Good question.
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
Well, Senator, the first point I make is I haven't actually been— the numbers I've been focused on has not been anybody's share price. The numbers I've been focused on is the numbers of Australians who are in the Middle East and what we can do to support them and what we can do to facilitate them getting home. That is the first point I'd make. So the second point is, you're right, ordinary people do suffer in conflict. And I'd invite you to consider the number of citizens who have been killed or injured by Iran's actions over decades. This did not start with the strikes on Saturday. This has been a long period of destabilising, aggressive, terrorist sponsorship by Iran over decades, including of Hamas and Hezbollah. And we all know what that has meant. Now, that is a reality that I understand you don't wish to engage with, but it is a reality. And our second point I'd make is you referenced Ukraine. I don't think anybody in this chamber would think that Iran is Ukraine. Right? Iran is not Ukraine. Iran has been a state sponsor of terrorism, including in this country, in your country. It has participated in attacks on Australians in our country. Now, in terms of civilians, from the very first moment, we called for, and we will continue to call for, international humanitarian law to be observed by all parties. And we have done that consistently because we do believe that the protection of civilians matters.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Waters, first supplementary.
Oil and gas companies profit from war, but they also profit from the elaborate con that is the Petroleum Resources Rent Tax. The PRRT is readily gamed by the gas industry, who are destroying the planet and profiteering off war and global unrest, while the rest of us foot the bill for the damage. This government gives gas exporters more than half the gas they export royalty-free. In the next 5 years, that's $170 billion. Why won't the government tax gas at 25% or even higher?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
Well, I would ask that the President consider how that is possibly a supplementary question to the first primary. No, well, I don't think the government works on with respect on the point of. I suppose it's a point of order, is it? Do you want me to take a point of order?
Yes,
Perhaps I should take a point of order. So, yeah, I do. Well, I'm trying to respect that. On the point of order,
Senator Waters.
the fact that the Greens political party have a particular view about the motivations of certain companies, it does not make a supplementary question relevant to the primary. This is a different portfolio. We have segued from a national security issue and an assertion about that. I haven't finished. I'm on the point of order.
Senator Hanson-Young, withdraw that. Thank you.
Go to the Treasury portfolio. I'm just making a point about maybe people asking questions in the way the Westminster system envisages.
Thank you. Senator Hanson-Young.
Just a point of order, Chair. The question was asked to Senator Wong in her capacity as representing the Prime Minister.
Yes, thank you, Senator Hanson-Young. I have sought the advice of the clerk, and the question is relevant to the primary question. Senator Waters, I think the minister's still answering.
I've accepted the ruling and I'm moving on, Senator Waters, and I would say to you that I am advised that the oil and gas industry contributed almost $12 billion in taxes in 2023-24.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters, second supplementary.
Australians' hearts will break from the toll of this war, and so could their wallets. In the extremely likely event that we start to see corporate price gouging as a result of this illegal war, people's groceries and power bills will go through the roof again. Will the government finally agree to work with the Greens and make corporate price gouging illegal?
Thank you, Minister Wong. Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Again, I think that's a topic that I assume would be in the Treasury portfolio, price gouging, and what my recollection is.
You need to come to order. Thank you. The minister has the right to be heard in silence. Minister Wong, did you wish to continue?
It's a very gendered comment from your colleague you might want to mention to him. Senator.
Order. Order. Minister Wong, I've got another senator on their feet. Please resume. Just a moment, Senator Ayres. I haven't called you. Senator Ayres.
The point of order is that it continued all through yesterday. It's happening again. I just ask you to request that the Green senators just have a little bit of decency.
Thank you. You will note that I did ask for order. I expect there to be order. Minister Wong.
Thank you. Again, this is probably a matter for the Minister representing the Treasurer. My recollection, Senator, and I will check if I'm wrong, is that the Treasurer has made a series of announcements around price gouging, including working with the ACCC and the Grocery Code of Conduct.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Dowling.
Thank you, President. While she's on a roll, my question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. Today's release of the national accounts provides an update on the economy at a time of increasing global uncertainty. The data shows that the Australian economy remains strong as a result of the Albanese Labor government's approach to responsible economic management. Can the Minister outline today's national accounts and what they tell us about growth in the Australian economy during 2025?
Thank you, Senator Dowling. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Dowling for the question on the national accounts and the question around what the accounts tell us about growth across the Australian economy during 2025. Today's national accounts show strong, broad-based growth and an ongoing recovery in the private sector. The Australian economy grew 0.8% in the December quarter to be 2.6% higher through the year. These are really encouraging numbers, and they're a very robust foundation from which we confront some of this intense global economic volatility made worse by the dramatic escalation of hostilities in Iran and across the Middle East. The accounts show that we've seen the strongest pace of annual growth in almost 3 years. They confirm that the Australian economy outperformed in 2025 with faster growth than every major advanced economy. This is in addition to Australia's record of stronger jobs growth and higher labour force participation than any major advanced economy since we came to office. But we also acknowledge there are challenges facing us, but advantages as well. We're not immune from the extreme global volatility, but our unique combination of economic strengths means we are well placed to manage the challenges coming at us. The pace of annual growth in private demand picked up in 2025. Private demand grew faster and contributed over 3 times more to economic growth than public demand in annual terms. Within a year, annual private demand growth more than tripled, but annual public demand growth more than halved. Real GDP per capita increased by 0.4% in the quarter to be up 0.9% over the year. That's, again, the strongest that we've seen in more than 3 years. Whilst we do acknowledge that quarterly movements can be volatile and the job is far from over, productivity is also up over the past year. It was flat in the quarter, but up 1% higher in annual terms, above the 20-year average. These are results that we should welcome.
Answering has expired. Senator Dowling, first supplementary.
Today's national accounts show the Australian economy performed strongly in 2025, with the private sector continuing to recover. Can the Minister outline what other insights the data provides about the performance of the economy, including trends in dwelling and business investment?
Thank you, Senator Dowling. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Dowling for the question. Well, the defining story of the Australian economy in 2025, as the Treasurer has outlined today, was the pickup in private sector activity, which the national account figures confirm. It's really encouraging to see more growth in business investment, dwelling investment, market sector productivity and household consumption, even though household consumption was slightly weaker than expected. New private final demand grew by 0.4% to be 3.2% higher through the year. There were contributions from all those 3 components of private demand in the quarter, including household consumption, dwelling investment and business investment. It's really because of the government's housing agenda. It's great to see that for the first time in a decade, dwelling investment has now grown for 8 consecutive quarters. It rose 0.6% in the quarter to be 5.5% higher through the year. This is a substantial turnaround from what we inherited before. You get growing, Senator Bragg, with annual dwelling investment going backwards by 3.6%.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Dowling, second supplementary.
The national accounts data reflect a deliberate strategy of budget discipline at a time when economic leadership matters. Can the Minister outline why the Albanese Labor government's approach to responsible economic management, not the Bernie Madoff School of Economics over there, can the Minister outline Labor's approach to economic management and why it's so important during a period of increasing uncertainty around the world?
Just waiting. I'm waiting for silence before I call the minister. Sorry, Minister, I haven't called you because there's not silence across the chamber. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, we will continue our measured and responsible approach to managing the budget, which has seen significant improvement in the underlying cash balance, which has seen debt lower, which has seen interest payments on that debt lower, all of those areas where we inherited a mess from those opposite. And we know from their own election costings documents that deficits would be higher, debt would be higher. The architects of the economic team of the worst election defeat in the coalition history are now the new leaders of the team. It's unbelievable. Those architects of higher debt, higher taxes, higher deficits, and we know that that was all that was published. What do you do when you have a failure like that? You elect the architects as leader of your party. Well, good luck to all of you.
Senator Henderson, you are one of the first to stand and call for order. You were well and truly disrespectful, pointing, shouting and carrying on. I'm asking you to sit and listen in silence. Senator Tyrrell.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Attorney-General, Minister Farrell. The government campaigned on a message of restoring trust in politics, away from the culture of secrecy of the coalition. Yes, yet as the PM conceded last year, quote, "This is a time when trust in governments and institutions is under challenge." This is backed up by data. Australians' trust in government has gone down even more since the 2022 election. Data from the Mapping Social Cohesion report shows that in 2024, 33% of adults think the government can be trusted to do the right thing by the Australian people, all or most of the time, down from 44% in 2021. So I ask the following. What action is the government taking to increase the trust in the community, to increase transparency and to demonstrate it is doing the right thing for Australians and not vested interests like gas companies?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Tyrrell for her question. You can trust us, Senator Tyrrell. We are a really trustworthy government because if we say we're going to do something, then that is what we will do. Can I just give you some examples?
Minister Farrell. Order. Senator Tyrrell.
Thank you. I trust you, Senator Farrell, but it was about the people of Australia trusting you.
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. The minister is being relevant to the question. Minister Farrell, please continue.
Thank you for that confidence in me, Senator Tyrrell. But look, can I just give you some of the examples of what this government has done to build the trust of the Australian people? Look, I probably should note that at the last election, of course, Labor significantly increased the number of representatives in the parliament here, which I take as a sign that the Australian people do trust us. And why is that? Well, let me go through some of the things that we have done. We've established a National Anti-Corruption Commission. We have strengthened the Ministerial Code of Conduct. We have strengthened protections for whistleblowers. All of these things done in the Attorney-General's portfolio. We've increased the funding of the ANAO. For instance, one of their inquiries was into the PEM system. I don't know if you recall the PEM system, but it was a system set up by the other side, completely failed to do what it was supposed to do. We restored transparency at the AAT appointments and established the ART. We reinstated a standalone privacy and FOI commissioner. We implemented the recommendations of the Bell inquiry into Morrison's multi-ministries. Is there anything that we haven't done to restore—
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Tyrrell, I'll just wait for silence, particularly on my left. Senator Tyrrell, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. These actions clearly aren't working. A near refusal to release the Jobs for Mates report, and then this week trying to pass on FOI bill, which is universally opposed by human rights and legal experts for eroding transparency. How is the government being more transparent than the previous lot by expanding FOI exemptions, reintroducing application fees and banning anonymous requests for FOIs?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Tyrrell for her first supplementary question. Look, the problem with the FOI system, Senator Tyrrell, is it's simply not fit for purpose anymore. You might recall one of the former senators who was in this place now ran as a candidate for the Lambie Party in South Australia at the last election, Senator Rex Patrick. He has set up a business model where he goes to members of parliament.
He works for all
he goes to members of parliament and say, "Look, if you pay me money, I can get FOI requests answered for you." This is a complete abuse of the FOI system. We want the
Thank you,
FOI
Minister
system
Farrell.
to work,
The time for
but
answering
not this way.
has expired. Order. Order. Order across the chamber. Order. Senator Henderson, I've called order about 3 times. Senator Henderson, once again being extremely disrespectful towards me. Senator Tyrrell, second supplementary.
Point of order, though. I've never used the transparency warrior once. As the Centre for Public Integrity states, the FOI bill would make it harder for journalists, whistleblowers and the public to hold government to account. We're facing a cost of living crisis with rising inflation and income tax being too high. If the government wants to be helping regular working people and be a more transparent government than the last, why are you making people have to pay to access information they have a right to? How does this help the regular working Australian and the health of our democracy?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Tyrrell for her second supplementary question. Well, we are a government that looks after ordinary working people, and I mentioned the number of seats that we won at the last federal election, Senator Tyrrell. One of the reasons we did so well at that election was because, unlike the opposition, we were focused on cost of living issues that affected ordinary Australian voters. And so all of the things that we did, I mean, I could list them all, but there are so many. And in the 24 seconds that I have left to answer the question, I couldn't go through all of them. But Australia, well, we could just read the report of the Liberals report, which has now finally been released. Look, talk about some transparency. What about that, Senator Tyrrell? What about that lack of transparency? They weren't even going to tell the rest.
Senator Farrell.
They weren't even going to tell
Minister
Australia.
Farrell, your time for answering has expired. Senator Duniam.
Thank you. President, my question is to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator Wong. Yesterday, you were asked by Sky News host Andrew Clennell on the issue of ISIS brides. Did you or your office have any involvement in helping Jamal Rifi obtain 34 passports for them? In your answer, you very precisely said, quote, "Look, the issue of passports, I've not engaged with Mr Rifi on this." Minister, did your office engage with Mr Rifi in any way on this issue of passports for the ISIS brides cohort?
Thank you, Senator Duniam. Minister Wong.
Well, Senator, I wasn't aware personally of Mr Rifi's engagement in the way that you've described until that had become more public. And I think Minister Burke has made clear he had no knowledge of Mr Rifi's actions and whereabouts other than what he had read in the media. I again say to you, Australians who are eligible are entitled to a passport. That's not a decision by my office. It's a decision under the legislation. There are circumstances in which for security reasons, a passport might be cancelled or suspended. I think you referred belatedly to the appropriate section yesterday, You referred to the appropriate section yesterday, and I made clear to you that the advice from ASIO or another competent provider authority which enables the minister to cancel or suspend was not provided.
Minister Wong, had you finished your answer? Are you on a point of order, Senator Dunn?
President, and it was just in relation to relevance, and I did ask whether the minister's office had engaged with Dr. Riffy or not.
Thank you. The minister has responded to that. She is being relevant. Minister Wong, did you have anything further to add? Senator Dunningham, first supplementary.
All right. Minister, have you engaged with Mr Riffy about any matters in relation to the ISIS brides cohort?
Thank you, Senator Dunningham. Minister Wong.
No, I have not.
Senator Dunningham, second supplementary.
Minister, has your office engaged with Mr Riffy about any matters in relation to the so-called ISIS brides cohort?
Minister Wong.
I do not believe so. I have no knowledge of it, and I will confirm.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Payman.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Home Affairs, Senator Murray-Watt. Recent reporting suggests the Australian government may be negotiating an enhanced border security partnership with the United States, which could allow US agencies, including ICE, access to Australians' biometric data and identity records as condition of maintaining access to the visa waiver program. Can the minister confirm whether the Albanese government has agreed to share Australians' biometric information, including facial images, fingerprints or identity document data with the United States government?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Payman. I don't have any information about that one way or another, so if there's anything that I can provide the senator with, I'll come back to the chamber and do so.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Payman, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. While you're at it, I'd also like to know if there isn't any agreement made, are such negotiations underway? Because Australians want to know what legal safeguards and limits are in place to prevent US authorities from accessing their biometric data, and how will the government ensure the agencies like ICE cannot use Australians' personal data for domestic immigration enforcement in the US?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator Payman. Since your first question, I've got a little bit of information here. I gather some of these allegations were made in a Crikey article about a month ago. I'm not sure if that was the source of your questions. What I can tell you is that I'm advised the Department of Home Affairs does not share with the United States the biometric data of Australian citizens applying for a US visa. The Australian government has not made any commitments regarding an enhanced border security partnership with the United States. This requirement was introduced by the United States in 2022 for visa waiver program countries. That's the only information that I have.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Payman, second supplementary.
Given the serious privacy implications, it's obviously good to hear that we haven't committed to anything. But, Minister, will you commit to tabling the agreement or any negotiations or conversations around the privacy impact assessments and governing data sharing framework before any arrangement takes effect, so Australians know exactly what personal information may be shared with foreign governments?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Watt.
Well, I'm not able to do so because no such agreement has been made. As all I can do is repeat that the Department of Home Affairs does not share with the United States the biometric data of Australian citizens applying for a US visa, and we've not made any commitments regarding an enhanced border security partnership with the United States.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ananda Raja.
Thank you, President. Let's talk about that great Labor legacy, maybe the greatest Labor legacy, Medicare. A bit controversial, but I think it's a good call. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health and Ageing, Senator McAllister. Delivering affordable health care when and where Australians need it is a key priority for the Albanese Labor government. How is the government making it easier for Australians to see a doctor or a nurse when they need urgent care?
Thank you, Senator Anandaraja. Minister McAllister.
Well, thank you very much for the question, Senator Anandaraja, because our commitment to the Australian people is very clear, and you are part of that, Senator, as a key advocate for public health in our caucus. We are a government that seeks to strengthen Medicare. We are a government that seeks to rebuild our system of universal health care, and there are now 130 Medicare urgent care clinics open across Australia, and Australians have made 2.6 million visits to urgent care clinics, and they are game changers for families. 1/3 of patients are under the age of 15, and they're giving more and more working families across our suburbs the access to the urgent care that they need. Once we open the full range of urgent care clinics, 4 out of 5 Australians will live within a 20-minute drive of one of these clinics, and these services are making and will make a material difference to people's lives. But it turns out that what some people see as common sense practical policy draws out some pretty notable distinctions across the chamber. So we say that urgent care clinics help free up space in our hospital emergency rooms and local general practices for the people who need help most. Those opposite and the new leader of the opposition says that funding for urgent care clinics is wasteful spending. We say that the only card you should need to access the care that you need should be your Medicare card. And those opposite and the new Shadow Treasurer say that we ought to see, and you might want to listen to this, listen to what your Shadow Treasurer has said, we ought to see the transfer of healthcare funding from government to individuals. Now, it's an interesting idea because if the Shadow Treasurer gets his way, the only card that will get you healthcare might be a Platinum Amex. Now, that might work well for the Shadow Treasurer, but it won't work for the vast majority of the Australian people.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Anandaraja, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. 130 urgent care clinics is something to sing from the rooftops. When it comes to getting quality health care, all you should need is your Medicare card, not your credit card. How is the Albanese Labor government's record investment in Medicare helping more Australians see a GP?
That's pretty borderline, Senator Ruston. Not only were you rude in interjecting, that's a term we don't use in this place. Minister McAllister.
Well, thank you for the question. The Albanese Labor government's historic $8.5 billion investment in bulk billing has delivered a historic result. You can see that the bulk billing rate has gone up in every state and territory across the nation. And again, what would seem to be a common-sense policy draws out some really interesting distinctions between ourselves and those opposite. So we say we'll expand the bulk billing incentive across the board. The opposition leader says let's freeze the Medicare rebate for 6 years and extend this approach, advocates for extending this approach to the entire health system. We say more people should be able to access a bulk billing doctor and see a GP. The Shadow Treasurer says people should have an individual health account that they contribute to on a periodic basis with their income. Well, what a marvellous idea from Mr Wilson, treating healthcare like time sharing.
Minister, the time for answering has expired. Senator Anandaraja, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. I note, President, those opposite stare at their phones when we talk about Medicare. That's how interested they are in Medicare and the Australian people. The Albanese Labor government delivered
Senator
cost of living.
Anandaraja, please resume your seat. I need silence because I can't hear the question. Please continue.
Thank you. The Albanese Labor government delivered cost of living relief to all Australians by strengthening Medicare and cutting the cost of medicines on the PBS in its first term. How is the government helping more Australians access cheaper medicines via the PBS? Are there any risks to these important measures?
Thank you, Senator Anandaraja. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President. Well, thanks to the Albanese Labor government, PBS medicines are now the cheapest that they've been for 20 years. The last time they were this cheap, 2004, and that is a 20% cut in the maximum cost of medicines under the PBS. And it means that Australians will save around $200 million a year. But if the Liberals and the Nationals and One Nation had their way, the maximum PBS general patient co-payment would have been more than $50 in 2026. And under those opposite, and they're all very quiet, families right across the country would have been paying twice as much as they are paying now. And again, you can't help but notice the emerging theme. Under the Albanese Labor government, medicines are cheaper, there are free Medicare urgent care clinics and more bulk billing practices. And under those opposite, you'd need to take out some kind of bizarre timeshare subscription to see a GP.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Senator Wong, your government is imposing a carbon tax on Australian fuel refineries under its so-called safeguard mechanism. That impost amounts to over $1 million for each refinery today. And to get to net zero, those refineries are potentially facing a bill of up to $1 billion. Minister, at a time of unprecedented global instability, why is this government making it more expensive and more precarious to refine fuel on Australian soil?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Order. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator Canavan. And it does feel somewhat like Groundhog Day and the National Party in the Senate are again asking inaccurate questions about energy, but being very successful in dragging the Liberal Party to the economically irrational right. And so, if I may congratulate you. You have certainly managed to get the Liberal Party to pick up your irrational policies. I think that they are rational and they are not good for the country. But as a political strategy, well, you certainly managed to get them there. Unfortunately, it isn't good for the country, and what we know is that under the uncertainty that your government imposed on the Australian economy, as a result primarily of National Party engagement and National Party campaigning, you had so much policy uncertainty that there was an effective investment strike. You had, I think, was it 22 out of 24 coal-fired power stations? I'll correct that if I'm wrong, but some number. 24 out of 28, thank you, closed.
Minister Wong, just resume your seat, please. Senator Canavan, I haven't called you. I am trying to get order in the chamber. Order. Senator Canavan.
Madam President, just a point of order on relevance. Australians are very concerned about uncertain fuel supplies, and as much as I'd love to discuss coal-fired power stations, the question was about our fuel security and the government's tax on Australian fuel refineries.
I think the minister is being relevant. I will continue to listen carefully. Minister Wong.
Senator, 4 out of 6 refineries closed under whom? Under you. 4 out of 6 refineries closed under you. And then 24 out of 28 coal-fired power stations closed under you. The problem is you have irrational economic policies which do not help Australians. Do not help Australians. And what we see that by the fact that the closure of the things that you care about on this front, refineries, had closed under you just as coal-fired power closed under you because of, and there was a lack of investment. I think Senator Ayres Minister Ayres made clear yesterday that we hold more fuel now than at any time in the last 15 years.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Oh, Senators McDonald and McKenzie, when you've quite finished, and Senator Ayres. Order. Order. Senator Ayres. Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Madam President. Minister, the safeguard mechanism is not free. Its costs are passed on through to transport, to logistics, to groceries, to every good that moves across Australian roads. Your own government's review found that petroleum carries the second highest risk of investment leakage under your safeguard mechanism policy. So the choice your government has made is this: to tax Australian refineries, drive investment offshore and import more fuel from overseas. Can you name a single Australian who's better off because of your carbon tax?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Wong.
Senator, I'd remind you that Kwinana closed in March of 2021, Kurnell in October 2014.
Please resume your seat. Order. 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 My goodness, I should not have to name senators to get order across this chamber. Senator McKenzie.
Point of order on direct relevance. The minister seeks to continually talk about previous government's policies instead of answering the question.
Resume your seat. Resume your seat. 3 times. Senator McKenzie, I had to ask you 3 times to resume your seat. The minister had barely spoken 4 words by the time you stood to call a point of order. There is no point of order. I'm going to request that you listen in silence or leave the chamber. Minister Wong.
I'm asked about fuel. I remind you that the Federal Energy Minister on the 11th of February 2021 said the Altona closure would not negatively impact Australian fuel stock holdings.
Who was that? Was it Mr Taylor? It was Mr Taylor. So I do want to remind you, Senator, you come in here now complaining about fuel refinery when 4 out of 6 closed under you. So the issue is that 4 out of 6 closed under you. You know that. You know what has happened, and you also know that this government and this minister, the Energy Minister, has ensured that we have more fuel now than we have had in 15 years.
Senator Canavan, second supplementary.
Yes, Madam President, I note the minister's made no attempt to defend their government's own policy. Minister, a permanent exemption for fuel refining from the safeguard mechanism would protect Australian jobs, protect our fuel security, guarantee investment to protect Australian jobs and put downward pressure on fuel prices. Why won't the government do it?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Wong.
Well, Senator, I think you should be upfront, and you generally are. Your position is not a single exemption. Your position is you don't want any action on climate. Yes. Oh, yes, that's true. Congratulations. Yeah, congratulations. Congratulations. You've managed to ensure. And how do you feel, Senator Sharma? How do you feel sitting next to him? You used to argue for action on climate change. And now what we see is the National Party leading the coalition on energy policy. And, you know, they wonder why voters, Australians throughout our cities and our suburbs look at you and they go, no way, no way. And it would be good if at some point people in the Liberal Party who used to believe in markets and sensible economic policy might stop listening to Senator Matt Canavan.
Minister Wong. I'll wait for silence. I'll wait for silence. Minister, order. 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 Senator Ayres, withdraw that comment.
I withdraw.
Thank you. Minister Wong, you have 7 seconds left. Okay. So, Senator Brown.
Thank you.
If the senators on my right care to look around, you have your own senator on her feet waiting to ask a question. Senator Brown.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Senator Ayres. Since the election in May 2022, a key priority of the Albanese Labor government has been building new energy generation and storage. How important is it for the government to secure Australia's energy system, and what are alternative views in the community about energy security?
Thank you, Senator Brown. Minister Ayres.
Well, thank you, Senator Brown. And I think we got a fair bit of exposure to what the alternative views are just a minute ago. I think we got a fair bit of exposure to that then. I mean, we say as a government, energy security fuel security is industrial policy. It is economic policy. It means, for our part, as our unreliable coal-fired power station system collapses around its ears because of the failure of the show over there, that we need to rebuild our electricity system, and in a responsible way, not in the way that One Nation and some of their friends in the Nationals and the Liberals have done, retweeting propaganda that yesterday, while we have got to a position in this country where our fuel reserves are the best they've been for 15 years, scaremongering, far-right extremist scaremongering over there created people lining up at petrol stations when there was no need. People over there talk about war profiteers. This show over here are political war profiteers. They love creating a sense of crisis. They love creating a sense of drama, and they're unashamed about their hopelessly partisan approach.
Senator Nampijinka-Price.
Order, President. Could you please ask the senator to direct his answers through the chair?
I certainly will. Thank you, Senator. Minister Ayres.
And the Morrison government did more than any other government in their leadership under Mr Taylor on energy to undermine Australia's energy policy security. And the dimmest bulbs in that government then came to occupy the front bench during the course of the last term. And the architects of last term's genius economic policy, the low-watt, dim-wattage bulbs, now are in charge. The shadow ERC of last term are the geniuses who are now in charge of driving this show right over a cliff.
Minister Ayres. Senator McKenzie.
As much as I, want to recall sitting on that side of the chamber, this minister continues. They've got no plan.
Senator McKenzie, resume your seat. That's twice I've had to call you today. You are well accustomed to the standing orders. You don't just stand up and start to make a statement. Minister Ayres, I think the time's expired. Senator Brown, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. The Albanese Labor government's energy policy backs in private investment in the energy system. Why is providing investors with confidence important for building a modern energy system, and how does it help ensure energy policy is fiscally responsible?
Thank you, Senator Brown. Minister Ayres.
It is.
Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. Please continue.
Thank you. It is important, and it's an important question, because if you get that right, it means the cost of investment doesn't fall wholly on the federal budget. The private sector does need policy certainty to invest. And that's something that the Liberal Party's recently released election manifesto or review makes clear. If you decide that you're going to publicly fund a $600 billion nuclear fiasco, well, not only does the market desert you, not only does investment disappear, but the public deserts you as well.
Please resume your seat. Senator Henderson.
Point of order. Could you please ask the minister to address his answer through the chair? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Henderson. I will remind the senator to address his comments to the chair. Minister Ayres.
Thank you, President. You would think, President, that the shadow ERC referenced in the election review would have picked up on this risk. That would be until you realise that the shadow ERC included, as former Prime Minister Turnbull said, Australia's best qualified idiot, Mr Taylor, dead cat bounce Taylor, and of course Senator Hume.
Thank you, Minister Ayres. Senator Brown, second supplementary.
Thank you. Building a modern energy system is a major undertaking. The Albanese Labor government is working hard to ensure the Australian people understand our energy policies and our rationale for the policies we implement. How important is it to explain major policies like energy to the public? What are some risks if this does not occur?
Thank you, Senator Brown. Minister Ayres.
Well, this is a question, of course, that goes to coherence when it comes to energy policy and energy policy leadership. And what you need to have, and the review, the Liberal Party review, that you should all read. You should all read. Mr Taylor, as Ms Sava points out, in a completely immoral and completely foolish and naive, I think the phrase was that she used, sought to hide it from you. But it makes clear that if you're trying to sell a $600 billion nuclear fiasco, what you need as a minimum is communication between the leadership and the party machine. You need a shadow ERC that's up to the task. You need political leadership that's focused not on hard right preoccupations and imported ideologies, but on the interests of ordinary Australians. That's what Australia needs. That's what the Liberal Party needed.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired.
Thank you. I ask that further questions be placed on notice.